I'm back. My name is Tova, lover of all of the creative, crafty things. At the moment, I'm thinking I want to do a 24-hour reading challenge because I recently went to a few of my favorite bookstores. I have been feeling an urge to read some social justice books that might help bring a bit more hope, maybe bring a bit more joy, and also a bit of healing at the same time. I picked up a few books that I feel like would be great for this 24-hour reading challenge. One, The Pacific Circuit. Talks about Oakland, West Oakland in particular, Silicon Valley's prominence and the ramifications of like this compulsive digital technology and all of these innovations and how it kind of underestimates the cost of the communities that it surrounds. And so I'm really looking forward to jumping into this. That's what I'm starting with. And I need to make some dinner. So I'm going to just start with the audiobook on this. I already have that. The second book that I feel I could read in tandem, Somebody Should Do Something. I know sometimes we just think in our heads like there's so much to do. I don't know where to do. Where do I even start? I'm thinking this would be the perfect thing to pick up. Maybe even just to inspire ways of doing collective action with friends. This is to say, I might not read the whole thing. Like this might be like something I read over the whole year. The next thing, because at this point, I'm probably going to need some sort of comic relief. That's how they get you, an unruly anthology of Black American humor. I have something very different because I'm also going to need like a hug. I'm gonna need a hug at one point. So I'm gonna read Gold Coast Dilemma. This is my romance book for y'all girlies out there. Okay, so it's about a girl who lives in Manhattan. She's an heiress. She needs to fulfill these traditional obligations, having a traditional marriage. And so she's kind of grappling with like, what does she do? Does she follow her dreams, her desires? Okay, so that's where we're starting. And I'm gonna just start my timer. I'm going to start with making dinner. I should also acknowledge I'm still very much in a creative slump. And so I'm using this to help me get out of this creative slump. I want to get back to making pottery on my wheel at home. So this could be an opportunity when I am reading an audiobook to just jump on the wheel, make some crafts. But also I just want to rest tomorrow too. So reading a book all day sounds like the best way to day rot. It is 5:25 p.m. Oh, I should mention it's 5:25 p.m. And we're going to be sleeping at night. So hold your britches. Let me go to my timer. Okay, so here we are, 24 hours, and the countdown begins. Meow. Before the challenge began, I already started this book listening to it in the car on the audio. So starting the book, I'm in chapter 8. There's a massive USPS center in West Oakland, which I've always kind of wondered, how did this place get here? Because it's massive. But apparently in the urban renewal project, this is like what they called the battle for Oakland at that time. They pretty much tore down a whole neighborhood to build this USPS center in a moment of urban renewal. This was a way to jumpstart the redevelopment for Oakland. And this was very much right in the heart of what they saw as the Black ghetto. What's ironic was like they considered this area as blighted, as in like there was barely anything there, just pretty much like vacant land, bars, junkyards. But people actually lived in these houses, and people who were like renting out homes or they were sold right underneath them. But yeah, okay. I'm going to continue reading.
Containerization set off a spiral in the scale of infrastructure.
Hello. It is the next day. It is actually 1:50 p.m. I'm an early morning person, so I wanted to just jump in the day, get some work done. And while I was working, I listened to an audiobook. But it's kind of hard to just like wake up, be like, hello, how are y'all doing? So here I am. I think yesterday was a really good day for me. I went to bed. I actually stayed up until 1 a.m., which got me to 17 hours left in this reading vlog creative challenge. And I went through a couple different things. First off, I'm halfway through now the Pacific Circuit, and I want to tell y'all a bit more of how I'm feeling about the book. I also started Somebody Should Do Something, so I got to page 58 in that one. At that time, it was pretty late, and I really wanted to just like close the night on something more uplifting. And so I was like, I'll just read one chapter in the romance book, Gold Coast Dilemma. I ended up reading 100 pages. It was really, really good. So, and the funny thing is Kennedy Ryan wrote a review on the front cover saying I couldn't put Gold Coast Dilemma down, and I felt very much the same when I was reading it last night. And so at this point, I am at 15 hours left. I stopped for a couple hours to do some work that I really needed to focus on. So at this moment, I'm not necessarily doing a good job of letting the clock tick. I don't know how to actually do this challenge where I can do it where the clock doesn't stop. I feel like as a freelancer, I'm always still having to respond in some way to a client or something. And so here we are. It's the afternoon. Okay, so for me, the Pacific Circuit is very much a redemption story. It's giving a full history of West Oakland, and it's really telling a vibrant story of when the community just finds a way to stick together and push through struggling times. And I think this is very much applicable to any city, especially Pittsburgh, Dallas, Texas, like even like Tulsa, for example, Black neighborhoods that are doing well. It's like this is an opportunity for them to find ways to destroy our communities. So I see this a lot happening in a lot of different cities. So this book also talks about environmental concerns. With the redlining, they divided West Oakland with the highway and the environmental pollutions of the port. And you go to the other side of Oakland where the highway is not, and you could see the air is cleaner. There's less smog. There's more plants and trees. And consecutively, over time, this kind of just goes through cycles where the city just comes in, and the focus is usually on like rich white neighborhoods who has a say of what open space looks like. And this is also to acknowledge that I do very much love and appreciate that we have preserved a lot of beautiful open spaces like in Marin. However, it sometimes feels at the destruction of who do we say gets beautiful preserved spaces versus who now will face the smog and face environmental harms and injustices. So open spaces usually comes at the socioeconomic levels of the politics within certain cities. Okay, one more thing. The narrator follows 4 people who have lived in Oakland over the past many years and their stories, how they actually took action within their community. And so what I like about Somebody Should Do Something, I think it does a really good job of breaking down collective action versus thinking you can do something on your own. This misconception of that we have to take on the burden of making this social change individually. I think that a lot of different corporations over the years have done actually a really great job of putting this propaganda of we have to do it ourselves. And you can even see this within the carbon footprint that like we have to do our own recycling. We have to become vegan. We have to do all these things individually to see change. And yes, all those things are great. And we should try to do as much as we can individually. We need to also take on collective change to see a bigger structural systemic change. What happens is this is kind of the mindset of you do you boo, or let's do this all within a system. So one may feel a bit ineffective, and then the other may feel a bit harder, maybe a harder reach. Instead, we should probably ask, what is the role in the system that we need to change? What is my role in changing the system? Or I like what they say of like finding roles in stories, actually finding these ways to see this change. And I feel like that's where the Pacific Circuit does a good job of showing some of those stories. Local structural change, I think, what they do as a good example of this was the Black Panther Party collaborating with the local priests and offering breakfast to the community. I would say that's a structural change because at that moment it's collective and it's acknowledging that within the system there is an issue of hunger. There's an issue of like not serving the low income community. And they're like, what can we do collectively to make a change? Which it's kind of like this grassroots where it kind of takes the collective people to make the change for the government to be like, okay, that was a great idea. Let's actually implement this. So I think overall, that's kind of where I am just on reading the first quarter of Somebody Should Do Something. So I'll see you later on when hopefully I can make more progress in this challenge. Atomizer. There's still a few raw sections that I missed, and so I'm gonna run through it one more time and just like splotched areas of the color orange. So right now we have a pink, there's a blue, a purple, and we'll add an orange. Here we go. Okay, sorry. It is Friday. It's a few days later. I failed this challenge, and I'm sorry. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. These are the books that I read some or most of or all of during this 24-hour, pretty much week-long book challenge. And I did do some pottery. I didn't get on my wheel, but I went to the studio, taught a class, did a little bit of glazing, and I feel good about that. So I'm still getting out of my slump, but I am happy that I'm making some progress in my creative process. I just kind of want to give a quick recap about the books that I read, but really quick before I jump into that, I do feel a bit of a way about this challenge, and I'm kind of reevaluating how I want to do this, or maybe more if it's like a reading sprint versus this 24-hour challenge. And the issue is, and of course, y'all are aware, there's a lot going on in the world, and I chose to do this challenge at this time to find personally ways that I can find hope in my life and ways that I could take action. And I also just didn't want to be swarmed with doom scrolling and being on social media during this tough time. So I'm glad I did this to find an avenue to support my mental health. But I found that I didn't get, because it was 24 hours, and even though I did sleep during the days, I didn't have enough time just to be in my thoughts. And I'm a ponderer. I like to meditate. I like to pray. I like to think about things. And I like to sit in silence, and I didn't get to really do that. And so I'm wondering if this was maybe the right time to, not the right time to do this. But that's just something to think about moving forward and how I show up. So first up, Pacific Circuit by Alexis Madrigal. So this is very much a love letter to Oakland. It's a hard look at its past. It's nonfiction. It digs into the community, purpose, and what happens to Black people when we are repeatedly pushed aside. It mainly focuses on transportation, and I really like this book because I have family members who are truck drivers, so this felt very relevant. It helps me understand how this weaves in the economy, in shipping channels, and the struggles of drayage, and how new tech from SF and Silicon Valley also have an impact within local, dare I say, marginalized communities. From that, and I only got to a quarter of the way in, but I started Somebody Should Do Something, How Anyone Can Help Create Social Change. So I did a little bit of a recap earlier about this. I want to continue reading this. I think this will be what I will continue reading in February, so you'll hear more about this book. And also just, I think this will be something that I want to figure out how I can take action in a more of a local level within my community. I just started this, and I think what I'm gonna do is read a few chapters a day. So I'm gonna take my time on this book, which I think is a good way to do it for me. And this actually is very humorous. The author won the award for the Thurber Prize, which is all about humor, from What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker, which I feel like I should check out. But I thought the first chapter was funny. Just how the style of writing feels very cultural. It feels very relevant. I think this book and like a few other books are, I don't know, when I read this book, it kind of makes me think like maybe I should do a separate video on just like books that bring me joy, make me laugh, which I think I might do. So yeah, I will continue reading this. And as you can see, maybe I'm a bit chaotic, and I'm definitely a mood reader, and maybe, I don't know, like I didn't finish all the books. It was very much what I wanted to read in the moment. Not saying that it wasn't a good book, but I just also needed to finish one or two books, right? And then, of course, slightly unrelated because it's a romance book, Gold Coast Dilemma by Nana Malone. And I think this was actually a great palate cleanser. It's light, it's not too spicy, and it honestly just made me smile. Although I didn't feel like I personally could relate to her upbringing, I thought the mom has very much full main character energy. I loved seeing the dynamics and even just learning about their culture, learning about food, learning about how they show up. I do kind of search for ways I can relate in romance books, and what I found I could relate to is this Afusa's work ethic. And I personally feel like when I am at work, I put my all in it, and I also have to push aside maybe even the people who don't think I deserve what I do, or maybe think it's just because I got to where I was from affirmative action. So I definitely felt like I could relate to her and her work ethic. I really like how this book kind of showed different types of relationships. I don't want to go too far into it because I don't want to ruin and spoil. I like that they had, for the most part, good communication. I definitely felt as though she kind of was a bit projecting, and that's kind of frustrating to see that. I felt like her relationship could have been even better and bigger than what it was if she had the time to process her trauma from her last relationship. So overall, I did feel like I learned something from this video. It was nice to pick up some nonfiction books. I haven't done that in a while. You will see more of me for the creative part. I'm figuring out ways of how I can show up more. And I think it's not just in me throwing on the wheel, but I want to lean more into what I've learned in becoming a ceramic instructor and even just starting a small business, and how I can apply that in inspiring and informing y'all, whether you are a potter or a artist or someone who is just trying to be a content creator. I want to be able to share what has inspired me. Okay, I'm going to end here before I go on a very much longer rant. Okay, bye.